Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me with a new haircut or new hairstyle, it's Joe Thomlinson. And a new tattoo is Patrick van Strassen.
Whoa, and a new goatee.
It's me, Doogie. And welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss a video. And we'll go straight in with Tom Galazzo's question. He says, what is wrong with Pep and his tactics in the Champions League? But before I dive into that, a final reminder that the FBA voting closes tonight. We are up for 4 or 5 nominations. I can't remember. 4, including Best Influencer in the World. So get voting for that. Get voting for the podcast, and Eurofootball Daily and Football Daily are up for awards too. So get voting. But yeah, let's start with Pep Guardiola and Man City's week in the Champions League, because it wasn't a good one, Joe.
I mean, it wasn't a good one. It wasn't a disastrous one either, though. I think they'll still be fairly confident of turning that result around against Tottenham, despite the fact that I personally think Tottenham will get an away goal at the Etihad. I don't think Pep got it right on the night, but he didn't get it entirely wrong either. I don't think selecting Mahrez was the right decision. I've said on this show and a few other shows, I don't think you're going to win Champions Leagues with Riyad Mahrez starting on the wing for you at this level anymore. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think he's way too predictable against top-level fullbacks, and Leroy Sané should have started. But equally, the rest of the team should have been good enough to get a job done out there against Tottenham Hotspur, because Tottenham Hotspur didn't have their full strength line out.
And lost Kane, obviously.
Lost Kane, what minute was that? Like 60, 50, something like that, 60 minutes in, which was a bit of a devastating blow. But equally, Heung-min Son tends to step up in his absence pretty effectively, doesn't he? I also thought the decision not to play Kevin De Bruyne and instead operate with Ilkay Gundogan in there was an interesting one. I didn't like Pep's quotes after the game or before the game when he said Ilkay's better in big games than Kevin. I thought that was a bit of an odd statement to make, given that Kevin was your player of the season last year and clearly fantastic in multiple big games, multiple big moments. Remember the winner against Chelsea, that thumping left-footed drive. So I thought that was an odd comment to make. I thought the Mahrez selection was probably wrong. You know, 1 dribble, 2 key passes, 1 block shot. I think he's just too predictable against Danny Rose. So I think Pep got it wrong on the night, but not so badly it's going to completely clear him out, because they could have scored. Aguero scores a penalty, it's a completely different situation.
Yeah, I totally agree on that front. And I don't really mind him starting Mahrez, so I think they do need to rotate sometimes in these instances.
Is this the game to rotate in the Champions League quarter-final? You're rotating.
Isn't this an indication that you feel like they're going for the quadruple? Like, you know, as much as he's talked it down, like the fact that they rotated for this game made me think, he thinks that they can.
Yeah,
they've got a shot.
My big issue with Pep's actions on the night was his substitutions were so late.
Yes.
Why bring De Bruyne and Sané on in the 88th minute? Yeah. What can they do at that point with 5 minutes left? That was my objection. But Pat, what do you make of? Does Pep have a problem in the Champions League?
To some extent. I think often people like to go back through the records of managers like this who are always, like coaching teams in the latter stages of the Champions League and say, well, they went out at the semi-finals, they went out at the quarter-finals every year. But generally speaking, you go out to really good teams at that stage. He went out to the Barcelona that won the treble. He went out to Ancelotti's Real Madrid. He got a little bit unlucky against Monaco and Atletico Madrid. Last year, I thought, against Liverpool was the first time where I thought he was just really comprehensively out-coached by a side that was not at a major talent advantage.
Yeah, they got blown away at Anfield.
And he does have the tendency to tinker too much, I think. Like, this is when the Champions League is when Pep goes like full galaxy brain and starts being like, oh no, we'll play Laporte at left back, and let's play Ederson in midfield or something. Like he just goes berserk, and I think that he is not as good at just letting his team go out there and do what they do as well as they do it, as Klopp is, as Pochettino is. However, I think it's really weird, and it's an example of like scoreboard journalism, that at the end of this week, people are criticising Pep for his management of their game against Spurs, but not criticising, say, Allegri for his management of the game against Ajax, despite the fact that Juventus should have comfortably lost that game. Like, they did not do enough to draw it. They certainly didn't do enough to win it. They basically set up in a really conservative way like City did and said, we're going to absorb pressure, and they couldn't do it. They were terrible at it all game long. Whereas Pep said, we're going to absorb pressure and we'll get a break. And actually they did. They got a penalty. And if that had gone in, I think we'd be talking about a completely different result. So I just think that often these sorts of narratives come down to just a simple bounce of the ball or somebody just making an exceptional save. And I think that's not the way that we should be looking at overall trends for a manager. I think Pep's team can certainly still turn this around. And if he does get, say, out-coached at the Etihad, that's a much bigger issue. However, would I have brought on De Bruyne and Sané earlier? Yeah. Do I like Riyad Mahrez starting for City at this stage of the Champions League? Not particularly. But at the same time, it could easily have panned out, and I think that we shouldn't get too hung up on the scoreline.
I totally agree.
I also think, just to interrupt there, sorry,
Sure.
that the narrative that's being written about that sort of Allegri versus Pep dynamic that you're just talking about then, I think that is partly Pep's fault as well. Allegri came out post-Juventus, and his interview where he says, we weren't good enough on the night, we failed to cope with Frenkie de Jong, Ajax were the better team. Mm-hmm. Pep came out on the night and said, we completely controlled the game, we're the much better team than Tottenham Hotspur. And I thought like that narrative sets him up for that sort of, for that attack of people being like, we don't agree with that. Whereas it's hard to then go to Allegri and go, well, it's effectively the narrative is we agree with you.
But what if that's true? I mean, like, I would say that City overall were the better team and overall did kind of control the game. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that they were comfortably better, but I think they were better.
It was a game of very few chances. I don't think either team really could say that they came out on top.
Overall, it came out I think it was like 0.7 to 0.6 in expected goals, but it was 0.7 plus a penalty for City, which basically comes out to 1.4, 1.5 to 0.6, and that overall is normally enough for a goal to nothing win. I mean, Son's goal is just great. And to be fair, like Tottenham often overperform expected goals because they've got really good finishers in Kane and Ali and Eriksen and Son. But overall, I just think we judge him after they go out or go through. And I think that it just requires us to look a little bit further below the surface. Otherwise, you end up in a situation, you know, like with Klopp, where people say, oh, well, he hasn't won a final in however many years. And when you look at the teams he's had in those finals and the teams he's played, you kind of think they shouldn't have been in those finals in the first place. Like, let's actually take a step back and acknowledge what he's done.
Definitely, 100%. Going back to Pep though, it just felt like the sort of ghosts of Anfield when they conceded 3 goals in the first 30 minutes were really sort of in the back of his mind, and he was just like, I'm not going to get blown away. And it was the most conservative I've ever seen City play under Pep, I think. Or at least the least gung ho that you'd expect. But you've seen it a lot in the Champions League this week. Teams wanting to stay in it.
Every favourite was conservative away from home in the Champions League this week.
Even Barcelona.
Yeah. Barcelona was super conservative.
Very conservative.
Barcelona and Juventus, I think, had something like 13 shots put together.
Yeah.
Barca had 5 shots.
And City had 10.
Yeah.
So all these teams were like, you know what, we're just going to not get beaten tonight.
Yeah.
And to be fair, none of them have been beaten. They're all still in their ties. And Barcelona are heavy favourites.
So many people on Twitter were criticising their approaches, but it's a 180-minute tie, and Pep Guardiola's City were out of it after 30 minutes of it last year against Liverpool. They were never going to come back from a 3-goal deficit against a team as well coached as Klopp. But do you guys, in terms of this game, how do you see it going at the Etihad? I mean, Kane will potentially be out. Joe, do you give Spurs? It seems a bit ridiculous to say any hope, but it feels almost like that.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think they've got hope. I think that Man City still have a real problem in the left-back area. Obviously, Fabian Delph is not good enough at this level for Manchester City. I think Benny Mendy, I don't really know what Benny Mendy's future it holds, to be totally honest. I don't know how much longer Man City are going to be willing to kind of eat that big wage and say, you might be our best fullback.
Also going to clubs at 3 a.m. before training the next day.
I think you might see City dip into the market for a left back this summer. So I think there's definitely areas they can get at them. And as Son Heung-min proved, they are there to be beaten. Like Laporte is an incredible defender, but I'm still unconvinced about Nicolas Otamendi alongside him. And Vincent Kompany can't get a game, can he? John Stones, was he injured? Why was he benched?
Stones was on the bench.
Don't really understand that move. I still think their best 2 centre-backs are Laporte and Stones. But if Son Heung-min is on fire again, then of course they've got a chance. Dele Alli, did he fracture his hand in the end? I think he did break his hand.
He did fracture his hand, but you can't imagine that would stop him playing.
Like, I still think Son Heung-min will score at the Etihad. Every time I watch him, I think he's going to score. I don't know why. It's just something about him. But they've got a chance.
The only thing is, in City's case, like, it's quite often in these games, I think teams, when they have a lead like that, they're too conservative when they go away. So, for instance, Arsenal beat Napoli 2-0 last night. When they go away, they should try and score, because if they score, Napoli have got to get 4. In the case of going away to City, I'm not sure actually if I feel that way, because I think City can easily put 3 on the board. So I think it's going to be an interesting.
They need Musa Sissoko to do another madness as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting situation to see how Pochettino sets his side up. Whether they're just going to try and like pretty much control the game defensively without the ball, and then rely on maybe Lucas Moura and Son just to blaze up the pitch on the counter. It'll be a really, really interesting game. And actually, I think Pochettino and Guardiola have fascinating games. Like they're like fascinating, but not necessarily in like the chess match way. They're fascinating, so they're actually fun to watch.
It'll be interesting to see. I always think when the teams going away to the same nation in the Champions League, home advantage. I don't know whether this is just a theory that I've got, and it's not got any actual proof. But I always think home advantage is slightly void when you play you play a team from the same nation. As in, there's nothing intimidating for Spurs players going to the Etihad. They go there twice, once a year, at least.
But City is so effective at home.
I don't know.
They are so effective at home.
But home advantage does exist across leagues, and it exists in the Champions League regardless of whether.
I just always think it's so much more of a, if you're going into like a cauldron atmosphere, going to a different country. I mean, maybe it doesn't have any basis in reality. But looking ahead to their potential semi-finalist opponents, Juventus and Ajax, do you think either of them hold much fear for Spurs or City, depending on who goes through?
Yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo will. Anybody who's facing Cristiano Ronaldo is going to be in trouble. I can't picture any game in the Champions League where Ronaldo doesn't score. That's the biggest problem, whether it's home or away. Juve was shit against Ajax, like Pato said earlier, absolute rubbish. But you know that Ronaldo's going to score.
His burst to get from, he plays the pass on, doesn't he, and then runs into that. It's so good.
It's a beautiful ball.
That was their only shot on target.
Could have been saved, though.
That was their only shot on target in the 90 minutes. But you know that Ronaldo's going to put the shot on target he has in the back of the net. That's the biggest problem. And as for Ajax, I don't think anybody wants to play Ajax, man. Nobody wants to play Ajax because there's no fear in any of their teams, and nobody can get near Frankie de Jong. When people start to man mark him and he drops in between the centre backs to pick up the ball, does that midfielder go with him? Or do they have a secondary striker push on? Like you've got to control Frankie de Jong, and when you try and control Frankie, they've got so many other talents across the midfield and in the wide areas that they're almost impossible to stop. They should have battered Juventus.
Yeah. And when they play with no forward or with Tadic as forward, like defenders literally have no idea what to do, because it's like there are 6 guys in midfield and one of them is Frankie de Jong, who just walks through your midfield when he feels like it or passes through it. If you're a pressing side like Spurs, but you don't have your first choice midfield, you've got like Winks and Sissoko, they are going to cut through you again and again. And once they're through you, you've got 5 or 6 guys running at a backline. Like it's terrifying. They're honestly, I think since probably 2013-14, I'd say that the Monaco season that they reached the semis and this Ajax are probably the 2 most entertaining sides I've seen in the Champions League.
I think
they are amazing. It's so fun.
The only problem they might face is that they're in a serious domestic race for a title. Obviously ahead on goal difference over PSV. So I think that, because they don't have the deepest squad, they've got a lot of talented youngsters, they don't have the deepest squad, that might harm them a little bit in the latter stages. Do they focus on the domestic title that they've been struggling with over the last few years, or do they put their eggs in one basket and just go all out for the Champions League? I think that'll be an interesting little battle. But like Pat said, you can't get near Frankie de Jong. Max Allegri came out after the game, he said, we tried to man-mark Frankie with Bentancur. Bentancur did it for 20 minutes, and then Frankie adapted his game, dropped between the centre-backs and lost his man and destroyed us. He can destroy midfields, entire midfields by himself. You saw him versus Modric. It was like Modric was chasing ghosts around the Bernabeu when they lost 4-1.
The individual highlights of Frankie de Jong in the Juve game are honestly worth seeking out, because it's like a peak Modric performance. From a guy who's 21.
Yeah. I also saw David Neres, who also scored that beautiful goal, being linked quite heavily with Dortmund this morning if they lose Sancho, which would be an intriguing signing. I think Ziyech is the most attractive attacking option they've got in there. But Pat, what would you make of David Neres to Dortmund? Tickle your fancy?
Well, we looked at David Neres last year, and he does look like an exciting player. My only objection to Neres is that he's not as fast as I would like him to be. Like, he's pretty quick, but he's not particularly quick. And also previously he's been a little bit one-footed, and then he goes and scores with his right foot last night. But yeah, very skillful, good dribbler. particularly creative. I would say he's more of a creator than a goal scorer from what I've seen. But it's always hard to know how these guys are going to transfer out of the Eredivisie. I think the rumour was that Dortmund had a bid turned down for him in January, and now we're hearing rumours of kind of 40 million euros. Everton supposedly interested. Arsenal supposedly interested. We were linked with him a year ago as well. So I would not be surprised to see him move on. But who knows, actually? Like, if they've had a really good run this year, there might be the part of him that's just like,
how many players do you think they'll lose?
Carry on.
How many players do you like? They could honestly lose 6 players this summer.
But they could also lose. They could also lose
Ziyech, David Neres probably.
They could also just lose 2.
Tagliafico's heavily linked with moves away as well.
But they could just say, but they're going to get so much money for De Jong and De Ligt that they could just say no to everything else. I don't know if Van de Beek will go this summer, and I think Ziyech. Ziyech should have gone before he went there, to be honest. He should have gone when he was like 12. He had a 12 million euro buyout or something at 20.
But if there's ever a summer to sign Ziyech, I feel like it's now.
Yeah, because he's 26.
26. Next season, when you're looking at him going into 27, another season in the Eredivisie. We've peddled the him to Tottenham move a number of times. If Christian Eriksen was to leave for Real Madrid or whatever, that'd be an amazing move. But I think you could get him out there cheap as well, probably, comparatively to a De Jong and a De Ligt.
Right, lads, it's prediction times. For the 2 ties we've talked about, Joe, City versus Spurs, who's going through?
I think Tottenham are going to go through.
On that tie, Pat, who do you reckon?
I'll go City.
I'll go City as well. And Juve, Ajax?
Ajax.
I'll probably go Juventus. So there you have it. Let's move on to our big match preview. As I said before, it's big match preview time, and we are looking ahead to a big clash on Saturday, 7:30 p.m. in Serie A. It's between AC Milan and Lazio. AC Milan at home. Joe, what do you think about this one?
I'll kick us off with Lazio because they've been super inconsistent. I feel like they're missing out on opportunities to climb into that top 4 more regularly, obviously losing to teams like Spal, but then beating Inter Milan. That'll be pretty frustrating, I'd imagine, for the Lazio supporters. They're also still way too reliant on Ciro Immobile, man. 15 goals, 8 assists so far this season in Serie A. I think the drop-off to the second highest contributor is like 11 goals, which is just frightening, isn't it? I think the next most lethal I've got written down here is actually Felipe Caicedo. 5 goals, 2 assists.
Throwback.
Like, that is just way, way too poor for me. Also, a little talking point going into this one, a little sort of underlying story, obviously, about Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, who has been heavily, heavily linked by the Italian press with a move to AC Milan this coming summer, which is going to be a pretty interesting one. Obviously, he was linked with fucking everybody last year, wasn't he, before the World Cup. And hasn't really progressed, I don't think, in the way a lot of people hoped he would.
It's been quiet this year, right?
Because he was being touted at sort of 100 million euros last season as being a sort of next Paul Pogba to come out of Italy, and it's not really happened for him so far.
Double figures for goals.
Yeah, I think he's got 4 goals, 3 assists, something like that this season. He'll have been hoping for better, I'm pretty sure. Lazio do have some injuries and suspensions, though. Jordan Lukaku, Berisha and Badelj all out of this one, so that will hit them pretty hard. They've also got a crap record at the San Siro. They haven't won there since 2015. So I think AC Milan are the favourites for this one, Pato.
Yeah, I mean, they're at home. They've got a slightly better defence. It looks like a slightly better attack. And if they were to win this, then it would give them quite a commanding lead over Lazio. I mean, how many points are they ahead of them at the moment? 3.
They are 3 points ahead of them.
Yeah, and they're in 4th. And they basically do need to win because they're level on points with Atalanta, and they're 1 point ahead of Roma.
It's really tight for that 4th spot.
So you kind of look... It's just a game that, like, if you lose it, all's not lost. But if you win it, you've pretty much sewn up your place, I think. And Piatek has been in sensational form. I mean, he's got 8 goals in 10 games for them. They're missing a couple of guys. Donnarumma's out, Paqueta's out. Though I think Paqueta has not quite been as incredible as they hoped he'd be when he arrived. Like,
first 5 games he was exceptional.
Yeah, but then they got this dream sold to them of like Kaká arriving, and
it's maybe a little bit over.
And he looks like a very promising player, but that's not quite the same thing as having Kaká. But Gattuso apparently is under quite a bit of pressure, which I don't really understand because I think he's done a lot better this season than we expected. After last year, he kind of came in and did exactly what we thought, which was, did a really boring defensive job, and they were just about competent. And this season, they actually look like a pretty good side. Like, they've strengthened really well. Those players who they bought, the previous year are all a year older and have grown together and have maybe adapted a little bit more. So I don't know. I think that Milan are actually in pretty good shape.
A lot of players under 25 as well.
I think they're in pretty good shape. I think that this one is going to be. I don't know. The last 4 games between these sides have been draws, so I kind of feel like it might be a draw as well, and that would be much worse for Lazio than it would be for Milan.
Fair.
So I could see it being a score draw because Lazio have like pretty much 2 modes, I think, which are like we're going to score all the goals in the world and win like 6-2, or we're going to shut it down and it's going to be a really boring, muddy game. And I don't know. I think away from home, I expect more of a shutdown.
Fair. What do you reckon, Joe?
I think Piontek will win it for Milan at the weekend. I think his form will be too good for that Lazio defence, particularly without Jordan Lukaku. I think I'll go 3-1 Milan, Piontek double.
What do you reckon, Pat?
Wowza. 1-1.
I might go a 2-2 thriller. And while we're talking about Italian football, we just quickly have to touch on Arsenal's win against Napoli last night. Did not see that one coming. 2-0.
Blew them away, mate.
Blew them away.
Class in the first half.
Why didn't you see it coming?
I just thought Napoli were a much better side than that, if I'm totally honest. Arsenal looked all over them, particularly in the first half. I thought Maitland-Niles looked really useful.
Yeah, I thought Maitland-Niles was probably man of the match.
Yeah, Ramsey picking up great positions. The only annoying thing, there wasn't more goals in it for Emery. They were great.
Yeah, I mean, Napoli still missed some chances though, didn't they?
They missed one really big chance.
Which one was that you're thinking of? The Insigne cutback where he puts over the bar?
Yeah, that he blazes over. But then later on, Aaron Ramsey kind of blazed a big one over the bar too. And I remember being annoyed about that at the time. And then I thought, you know what, like that's kind of a fair trade-off. We missed that one, they missed that one. But it's just the story of Arsenal season. Like, we've just been great at home all season. The only sides that we haven't done this to at home, really, have been United, where we still managed to win, Wolves, where we drew, and City, where we lost. Like, other than that, I think we've been comfortably the better side in every home game all season, no matter who we've played. And, yeah, I don't know. I was surprised at how ineffective they were defensively. And the Arsenal press was sensational in the first half. But I think part of that is Torreira coming back as well. We just pressed.
Koulibaly was crap.
We pressed so much.
Not a good day for
in
the shot market in England as well. Not ideal. But Pat, I'm sure the fans will want to know just quickly, why do you think Arsenal's away form is so bad?
I honestly don't know. I think that maybe just as we improve the defence, we'll see how it goes. But like,
because those 3 away games, Wolves, Watford and Leicester.
And I think we've got Burnley as well on the last day of the season.
Yeah, they're
I think we can only afford. I think we need to win like 3 of those. We can only lose 1. I think if we lose 1 and win 3, we'll easily make top 4.
Yeah.
Fair. Right, it's a fascinating battle for the top 4 in England and in Italy. Let's move on to quickfire questions. Right, we're just going to do one quickfire question because we've been rambling on and on today, and it comes from @Siva the God even, and he says your top 5 teams and top worst teams or worst 5 teams of the season. We're not going to do that because that would be very long indeed. But Joe, which one side from Europe have you been most impressed with this year? Slightly under the radar potentially, who knows?
Well, I think we'll all say Ajax, so I'll try and avoid that. Slightly left field, Watford. I think Watford under Gracia, there's arguments that he's manager of the season, which I think rightly so, potentially. Didn't spend a huge amount of the summer. And if you, the average football fan, can name Watford's starting back 4, I'll give you a tenner, because nobody can. It's like Mariappa, Cathcart, Kiko Femina, Holebas, Prödl. It's just so mediocre. You know, he's getting great things out of Decore, who is so mediocre. Capu, who has somehow turned into a fantastic defensive midfielder under Gracia.
Herrera only playing like 5 games.
Yeah, Deulofeu, who has struggled every club he's been at until Javi Gracia's got his dirty mitts all over him. Troy Deeney somehow turning into a wizard in the box, you know. Andre Gray in rotation. It's such a mediocre squad. It's so mediocre. He's got to a cup final and he's pushing hard for a European place.
You do feel that whoever won that semi-final in terms of Wolves, Watford, you know, you could easily say Wolves in this position as well.
Arguments are made though, if Warnock keeps Cardiff up, that could actually be manager of the season.
That will actually be staggering if he does.
Yeah, he'll be manager of the
season.
season.
And Pat, on the other end of the scale, is there any team in Europe or that you've been very unimpressed with?
Fulham.
Yeah, Fulham were pretty unimpressive overall. I've been kind of unimpressed by Brighton. I just think it's really disappointing that they hired a bunch of interesting guys and then have barely played most of them. So that's been a little bit sad. Obviously, Schalke are huge underperformers this season. Last year got pretty lucky to come in second, and this year, despite making the knockout stages of the Champions League, absolutely abominable in the league. I think they've scored like 29 and 27 or something. They're shocking.
Monaco?
So,
I was going to say Monaco.
yeah, though I still think Monaco will rebound pretty well. I mean, like they're going to stay up with Jardim, and they'll probably buy interesting players in the summer. And knowing them, they'll just be good again next year. Eintracht Frankfurt as well. Just to go back to good teams, Eintracht Frankfurt, Getafe, who are in fourth, I think, still in La Liga, and RB Leipzig, who are meant to basically be having a placeholder season between Hasenhüttl and Nagelsmann, and I think are the second best team in Germany after Bayern. They have a fantastic defence. They've got an amazing attack.
That's such a hot take over Borussia Dortmund.
I think Borussia Dortmund are not that great. So yeah, I think that Leipzig, like you've got a guy who's just meant to be like, you know, keeping the ship stable, and he's gonna get them back in the Champions League.
Shout out Big Ralph, man.
He's must be one of the most talented guys in football.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
He can just
It's
do a bunch
crazy.
of
Alternate
jobs.
between, you know,
Get him in at
ball and
United,
pitch,
Big Ralph.
incredible. Another team having an absolutely horrific season, Villarreal. But have still got some, you know, great talent.
Terrible
well.
result
Santi
last
Cazorla
night.
still turning.
Terrible
result
They
last
lost
night.
3-1 to Valencia, didn't
There's
they?
so much talent there.
Chukwueze as well.
And of course, Karl Toko Ekambi, who's been amazing in the Europa League, and Pablo Fornals, who's been great as well.
I don't know how they're nearly getting relegated. I need to look into it. But yeah, that's our top, you know, one or two good teams to look out for, and you know, some very much disappointments from the season. Let's roll straight into the end board. Joe, what's going on Football Daily?
Oh, sorry, Dukes. That was fucking mental.
mental.
Mate.
Got there in the end.
The goatee sapped all your power.
Come over to Football Daily if you want to watch We Need to Talk. This week it's all about Diego Costa.
What, how is it now?
Yeah, I mean, and he's also got an 8-game ban. You know, out for the whole season. He has scored 4 goals, or 5 actually, 5 La Liga goals in a season and a half, and he cost them 55 mil.
Wow. And he's a complete ass as well.
You know, have you seen his excuse? Have you seen his excuse for saying, you know, he apparently said...
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's quite a common.
No, but apparently
Sorry if you didn't catch any of that, we've been heavily bleeped.
his excuse is that he was saying about his own mother.
I mean,
So-
people do say that. Okay, we'll get into that another time. but yeah, Diego Costa, Maverick.
Okay. And come back tomorrow for Stat Wars the League. It's Obaseki versus McCubbin. Go and watch Thursday, Stat Wars the Champions between Joe and Zach. Rate the haircut, goatee, and you haven't seen the tat yet.
Where's the tat? Let me get the tat out. Where's it in
It's all wrapped up. It's all wrapped up. To be revealed at a later date. Thank you very much for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye.